Okay. How many people are in the room for Met and Dish?
We want to do that last though, right?
All right.
The president enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, he doesn't have on his Hawaiian shirt.
How many people want to talk on Met and Dish if I open it up?
Well, we have a very active crew out there today,
It's a matinee audience, so it's easy.
apparently.
All right, we're going to call the Senate Committee, Finance Committee to order. And do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We've got all kinds of movers and seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. We are in executive session. First bill I'm going to take up is Met and Dish, 249. All right, I saw the hospitals wanted to come up, so you guys come up first, and then we'll go from there. Just so that everybody knows, it is only at the chair's request or one of the senators wanting information from somebody in the audience that is normally allowed to speak during the executive session. So don't think that this happens all the time, and we'll go from here. Mr. Nunn.
Good afternoon. Steve Annan, President of the New Hampshire Hospital Association. Appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you. I'm not going to testify. I don't have testimony to hand in, but do appreciate your attention to this important matter. I think it's important to start out is that we want to continue the partnership that has existed on this issue for over a decade. You know, Met and Dish has been a controversial subject. After two superior courts found the Met to be unconstitutional, hospitals in the state sat down and we worked together to create greater predictability and stability for the Medicaid program, for the state budget, as well as for hospitals. And hospitals wanted to see a fair and reasonable payment mechanism coming back to them. Met and Dish, as everybody knows, is a complex issue, and there are many things that happen at the federal level that have implications and impacts on us. And there are changes that are coming and that are going to require that we transition some of the distribution methodology. We support that change. In fact, we brought that forward. It brings more federal matching funds to the state of New Hampshire, which is good for the Medicaid program, and we support that. But we just have to do so in a way that does not cause more harm to hospitals. Hospitals continue to struggle. You know, coming out of the pandemic, in 2023, we had 9 hospitals who were losing money with a negative statewide operating margin of a negative 0.4%. We have significant headwinds. Hospital capacity continues to be incredibly high. We have a significant workforce shortage. We have other challenges getting patients out of the hospital who no longer need to be there. And again, we want to find a way to solve this. As you know, we've been certainly talking with all of you. We've also been talking with the governor's office, and the proposal that we shared with the governor last week is a proposal that mirrors what we were working on last summer, that maintains more of the 91% of the Met coming back to hospitals, but with a small addition of using some of those enhanced funds that come back to the state as a result of this change. As a result of that, we believe that we can generate significant new revenue for the state, roughly $80 million more than the state would have received under the prior agreement, and hospitals would continue to lose money. We would see $46 million in losses for our 13 largest hospitals, but as we've talked with our members, they have said that they are willing to to do that because for the greater good, because it provides more resources for the state and it allows them to manage to that bottom line. Again, protecting critical access hospitals, they will get more money under this agreement than they did previously. Protecting the larger hospitals from suffering more significant losses, which frankly doesn't help anyone, certainly not the critical access hospitals, because when a patient in their facility needs to be transferred to a larger hospital for higher levels of care, if the larger hospitals are struggling and can't do that, it certainly doesn't help those critical access hospitals. It provides additional resources for the state that can be invested in critical services that we know are important. And again, it allows us to maintain the partnership that we've developed on this issue, avoids further controversy, and allows us to move forward together. And that's what we hope to do, and we think there's an opportunity to do that, and we appreciate your attention to this matter. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Are there any questions from the senators? Senator Bertzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question, Steve. I have a couple questions. One, currently, my understanding is it's at 80-20, correct?
That's what's currently in the budget, yes.
So at 80%, the critical care access hospitals are actually doing better than they would under the 91%. Can you explain why?
The critical access hospitals will roughly be paid very similar amounts under any scenario. I see Dave Chorney from the Medicaid program behind me, and there are limits on what can be paid using these various methodologies. We could go down a rabbit hole and get very technical. Dave can probably do that better, but there are some limits as to what we can pay the critical access hospitals based upon what is known as the ACR, the average commercial rate, is what we're benchmarking the directed payments that they would be receiving. So there are some limits as to what we can pay there. So again, they're going to get paid well, they'll be paid more than they were paid last year under any scenario, and under the scenario that we've put forward, that would be about an additional $5 million beyond what they were paid last year. And as I said, we've had this discussion with our entire membership, large hospitals, small hospitals, and they've all said that this is something that they would be willing to support.
Follow up?
So you're advocating pretty much the scenario that we had last year with the 91% and an add-on.
Correct.
Do you have any idea what this would be, what kind of a hit or impact it would be on the general fund?
So it's about it's about $14 million in $12 to $14 million in total that would be added to that 91%. To generate that 14 million would take roughly, I think it was $5.5 million to generate that total of 12 to $14 million.
So you're talking 5.5.
5.5.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions from the senators? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Steve. So we have the formula here in 249. Do you feel there are any kind of remaining issues involved with this, any remaining funding issues involved with this in terms of how the funding to the hospitals and so on goes on? Or do you think this bill adequately covers all bases? I mean,
Well,
I'm trying to ask what's left for negotiation in your
Well,
eyes?
as we just noted, again, the Senate last week adopted an amendment on Senate Bill 249 that moves the percentage back to
Right.
the hospitals from 80 to 91%. While that's certainly a significant step in the right direction, we would still see about $60 million in losses for some of our 13 largest hospitals, which again, given the environment that they're in, is just a significant struggle, which is why we went back to saying, let's look at that 91% plus.
Let me follow up.
Follow up?
I mean, knowing that Wentworth Douglas and over in Dover is one of the ones that would be impacted by this, could you envision a mechanism whereby that issue of the $60 million could be given to a certain group to make determination as to how that funding should be, whether what might be done about it for those hospitals? And I know there's a small group set up in this bill that might be authorized to come up with a formula for that? Although I know there's pressure to get it done because it's in the budget and that's $60 million sitting there, but can you envision some way to kind of, how are we gonna come to some agreement over that 60 million?
Well, you know, the state is obligated to make payments in a compliant manner that CMS would allow. We can't just decide,
Yeah.
you know, we're going to give you more today, we're going to give you more tomorrow. We have to do it in a manner that's compliant, which, again, we completely agree that it needs to be done in that way. I think what we're going to have to do, and I think the study committee certainly gives us an opportunity to better understand what are the implications of moving from one payment methodology to another. How can we transition that in such a way that, again, tries to do what we've always tried to do, maximize federal revenue so we can bring back more to the state of New Hampshire to help support the Medicaid program and all the services that we need, but do so in a way that doesn't overly harm the hospitals who are paying that tax, that are generating that matching revenue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Additional questions? That's Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for taking my question. So if we don't fix this and there ends up being a significant financial hit to the hospital system, am I right in thinking that cutbacks in programs and services would lead to lower Medicaid enhancement tax revenues in the future and future federal dollar matching those funds as well?
You're absolutely right. I guess I would just say, number one, it is our hope and expectation that we will get to an agreement because that's the right thing to do for everyone. Having said that, if there are significant financial cutbacks for individual hospitals, they will have to make decisions about all of the services that they're able to provide. So services that may not make money, they may lose money on certain services, those kinds of things may fall away, or they may cut back on those. So if they're generating lower amounts of revenue, that impacts obviously the amount of Medicaid enhancement tax that they would pay, and therefore would have implications on the amount of revenue that would be generated year over year.
Senator Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, thanks for coming in. The bill that we have in front of us puts it at 91%. How is this going to compare in the amount of money that goes to the hospitals currently? And I guess I'll back up a second. I am aware that many of the hospitals have been struggling. They're closing wings. They're short on personnel. They're not able to essentially pay their workers enough to get more people there in the door so they can keep these wings open. If we pass this bill at 91%, is there some assurance that we're going to see those conditions improve in the hospitals and in our communities, that there's going to be the ability to get more money to the employees, get those wings open back up, and have those beds available to service our communities?
What I would say is, at 91%, as it was passed by the Senate last week, there are still some significant losses, $60 million in losses for our larger hospitals. By adding these additional dollars, we bring that down to about $46 million. We hope that is something that they can work and manage to. Certainly going to be challenging, no question about it. And again, making certain that we can serve our patients and communities is what our hospitals are focused on every day. I guess I would also say, we're not operating in a vacuum. We all know and understand that, change is coming from Washington. And as I've been saying, hospitals are getting paid as much today as they're ever going to get paid under Medicare and Medicaid from the federal government. There will be Medicare and Medicaid spending reductions coming from Washington. I don't know what that will look like. I don't know how much that will be. But there's no question that that's going to have a potential significant impact on their ability to continue to provide all the services that they do. So again, which is partly why I think we need to get to the right agreement here, because we know we've got other changes that are coming that are going to challenge us.
Follow. So what's the plan? What is the plan the hospitals have in place? I mean, we're seeing some real shortages in our communities already. And I mean, I'm certainly willing to listen and be open to doing what's needed, but what's the plan? If you know the shortage is coming, what's the plan going forward? How are we gonna have these hospitals in a shape to, you know, in a good position to serve our communities?
Thank you for the question. It's you know, the $800,000 question, which is how are we going to manage? And I think what, you know, we are seeing in terms of innovative programs and approaches that hospitals are taking to try and, you know, be there for their communities, you know, getting out into the community beyond the walls of the hospital to ensure that patients are able to get the care they need so that they don't end up needing inpatient care and hospitalization. But that requires resources for us to be able to invest to go do those things. So again, we're going to be working to provide innovative solutions that are able to meet the needs of our communities. But, you know, those challenges are not going to be made any easier as a result of those, you know, spending reductions, whatever they are, whenever they come.
Well, anything you can provide to us so that we can feel comfortable at looking in this and putting more of our state dollars into it is important, that we understand that. So I would just urge that you keep us apprised of these things and how we're going to make sure these hospitals are there and available to represent our community. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I'll just add as a reminder, when hospitals pay the Medicaid enhancement tax, they will pay $348 million on April 15th. That will generate approximately $430 million in federal matching funds that the state will use to fund the Medicaid program. Those are not state general fund dollars. Those are dollars that the state is benefiting from the match that the on the tax that the hospitals pay. So again, just a quick note, those are federal dollars that are coming to New Hampshire, which the hospitals are willing to do and pleased to do because it supports the Medicaid program for everyone, so that patients are able to get the care they need when and where they need it.
Thanks.
Additional questions from the senators? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
The Honorable Jeb Bradley. And I am going to ask the Medicaid Deputy Director to come up if he's got comments after Senator Bradley.
Good afternoon. Great to be back. How quickly I forget, right? How quickly I forget. For the record, I'm Jeb Bradley, and I want to make it clear I'm here representing myself and no one else. I think all of you recall the debates that we went through last spring. We spent a significant amount of time trying to resolve the Met-DISH issue. Unfortunately, at the end of the session, a committee of conference could not get it done, and here we are. So knowing that and knowing how involved I was last spring, I approached Senator Carson. We talked about how to resolve this in a way that was fair to the state, fair to the hospitals, and just a reasonable solution overall. And she asked me to stay involved and, quite frankly, try to give her advice. And that's why I'm here. I think it's important to remember that what we didn't face last spring was a deadline that you face today. The Medicaid enhancement tax is due to be paid on April 15th. Last year, it was in the future. Here it is, staring you right in the face. But the background of how we got here is really important. In 2018, the state and the hospitals reached an agreement to pay the Met so that the state could receive matching funds, which historically have been north of $300 million, that benefits both the Medicaid program but also the general fund. The hospitals pay it on their net patient revenues, and they get in return disproportionate share payments that in aggregate are 91% of what they've paid. So think of it this way, it is a tax because they're getting 9% less than what they've paid. It's also important to remember, and there's been a little bit of discussion about this, that the hospitals, when they get this DISH payment back, don't get 91%. They get a payment based on federal rules that could be higher than 91%, sometimes even higher than 100%. critical access hospitals tend to benefit, but the larger hospitals are getting a lot less money in aggregate back than the 91%. It depends on the mix of services, what they offer, how much uncompensated care they have, their patient mix. That's why some hospitals get more than 91% and some get less. Well, guess what? It's a problem. So hospitals, as Mr. Anand just said, they either have to raise prices or restrict services. Think about obstetrics. Fewer hospitals are offering that because it's high cost. Higher prices from the hospitals lead to higher insurance costs and a less robust healthcare system. But the bigger issue is the legal issue. Twice, the New Hampshire Superior Courts have ruled the Medicaid enhancement tax is unconstitutional. The first case was brought by CMC, Exeter, and St. Joe's. The tax was ruled unconstitutional. The second case brought by Northeast Rehab Hospital, same result, unconstitutional. Why is that? The tax is based on the total services that the hospitals provide, inpatient services and outpatient services. Only hospitals offer inpatient services, so nobody else is offering inpatient services. But there are a whole range of other providers that offer outpatient services, whether it's ambulatory surgery centers or unaffiliated urgent care centers or multiple types of therapists. They're all the same services, and the courts have ruled that you can't just tax the hospitals on those services because of our Constitution and the requirement for equal protection. So, what could you do? You could restrict the Medicaid enhancement tax to inpatient services. That would probably pass constitutional muster, but you'd lose hundreds of millions of dollars because outpatient services actually are bigger than inpatient services. Or you could extend the Medicaid enhancement tax as a levy, a tax on all the other providers. I think in this room we know that neither one of those can happen. So that's why the Senate, and it was Senator Gray, Senator Rosenwald, and myself got so involved in trying to resolve this. And now we're facing an April 15th deadline. So I would congratulate you on the amendment that you voted for on Senator Birdsall's bill last week. It moved it from 80% to 91%, but as Mr. Anand just testified, at 91%, the hospitals still lose $60 million, the large hospitals, in aggregate. That is a heavy burden for hospitals with thin margins to have to deal with. They're difficult to sustain in terms of health care, and they're even harder to justify, at least in my opinion, when the tax has twice been ruled unconstitutional. So what did we do last year? Well, first of all, the entire Senate voted for, and all of us are here, for 93% instead of 91%. But in order to get the bill through the process and through the House and signed into law, we added what was called an adder, and Mr. Anand just testified to that. The vote on House Bill 1593 with that amendment at 93% was 24-0. Unfortunately, the adder failed. So what happens on April 15th? Well, if there's litigation and the state has already lost twice because we're taxing outpatient revenues and other providers are not under the equal protection, or the hospitals are not under equal protection, that tax, in my opinion, is likely to be ruled unconstitutional again. So if it's unconstitutional, it can't be collected. If it can't be collected, there is no federal match. And so right off the bat, with higher net patient revenues, you're $350 million short in your budget. So I would urge you to understand the situation that the hospitals are facing. At 80%, The large hospitals lose $100 million. At 91%, they lose $60 million. But for whatever reason, and God bless them, they're willing to accept losing $46 million to make this work for the state and for the Medicaid program. That can't be seen as a windfall to hospitals. So in my capacity, trying to advise you and Senator Carson in particular, this is an acceptable solution. You just heard Mr. Anand say that it would work for the hospitals. And it protects the state, and it protects the budget and the absolute need for more revenue. So how would you do it? So I have copies of the Committee of Conference amendment that was put forward in my name last year. And if you insert that into Senator Birdsall's bill, on page 4, I believe it is, at the top of page 4, insert section 13 of the Committee of Conference amendment that I proposed. That's the $5.7 million adder. The balance of the bill that was proposed, Senator Birdsall did a good job of incorporating that Committee of Conference amendment into 249. It's already there. And the last piece that's on the second page of the Committee of Conference amendment is no longer needed because the higher net patient revenues and the way that the directed payments work make that statement of intent. It's just changed. As Mr. Anand has said, there would be a net benefit to the state of about $80 million over and above what we are able to collect now for the general fund. So I would hope that you would incorporate this section 13 into Senate Bill 249, remove the threat of litigation, have the enhanced revenue of $80 million over and above what we currently collect, and to help you put together the next budget. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for your forbearance, and great to be back here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, but see, now you're subject to their questions, Jeff, so.
Happy.
Questions from the senators. Senator Waters.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for being here, for helping out. Your experience and wisdom. And so I see in the amendment the 93% went away, and we had as the 91, which is what we have now. And so, in a sense, is that kind of a trade-off that the adder is the 91 to the 93, or is there any argument for staying with trying to do the 93?
I would say this. You just heard the testimony of Mr. Anand.
Yeah.
And if I understood it correctly, his board has approved going with the version of the adder, which is slightly more generous to the hospitals, but they're still losing $46 million in aggregate, the large hospitals. And if I were sitting in your shoes and understanding the threat of litigation that only takes one hospital to file suit, and there are several hospitals, even at $46 million, I'm told, that are really under duress by, the way the reimbursement rate, if you will, works. And so you quite frankly need a settlement, and a settlement that protects the state finances, but also protects the healthcare system in New Hampshire. That's critically important. I've heard people say, and look, I've represented the critical access hospitals for years when I was in the Senate. They're going to be okay, but at the same time, I'll tell you a little story. When my mother showed up at Huggins Hospital, one of the critical access hospitals, with a potential heart attack, she was shipped right to CMC. And that's what happens. And without having the critical access hospitals able to get patients in the time of need to the larger hospitals, the healthcare system falls apart in this state. And it should be critically important to all of us. So yes, $5.7 million is a significant amount of money, but if it resolves the issue and protects the federal funding, to me, that's a pretty good arrangement. And I think it's also important to remember how the hospitals have partnered with us on Medicaid expansion. And when we did the budget last time, when I was sitting in that chair, and we dedicated $134 million to new provider rates, the hospitals specifically asked to be exempted from those higher rates because they wanted the money to go to providers. That's the kind of partnership I think that the hospitals have provided to the state. And I think why this kind of a settlement is good for everybody. It's good for the state, it's good for the budget, it's good for the healthcare system in New Hampshire.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Additional questions? Senator Rosenwald.
I'm trying to thank you for taking my question. I'm trying to think about the timing of this, because it's all based on tax years, right? So if we did the $5.7 million add-on, it would not be for both years of the biennium, right? It would just be for the
I think the
second
way
year,
it's
I think.
written, it would be
Because
fiscal
they're gonna
year
pay their taxes
26
in
and
a few
27.
weeks.
Yeah, and if you look at, in Senator Birdsall's bill, line 18, beginning in fiscal year 2026, so it'd be 26 and 27, because Senator Birdsall, and I think rightfully so, has proposed a 2-year settlement, and it gets looked at again. Again, that seems fair.
Additional questions? Senator Birdsall.
So thank you for taking my question, Senator. So we're talking just about 5.7 million each year.
Yes, and the one thing I would say, you would have to correct the language, and I know Mike is really good at this. In the amendment in section 13 from the Committee of Conference report to just reflect 26 and 27.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Senator Pearl.
Thank you. Good to see you again. Thanks for taking my question. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So the $5.7 million per year is going to directed payments. How is that allocated to the individual hospitals? Is there a formula for that?
So there would be a formula for that. I think the, Mr. Chesney is here, probably could answer that question better. This idea was something that came out of discussions that Senator Gray, Senator Rosenwald and I had with the department folks last year and the hospitals.
Yeah, I remember the discussion. I just didn't remember how it was allocated and, because it just appears we're giving them the money to do it, but not telling them how to apply it. And that's why I was wondering.
Well, and that's why what we voted for in the first bill, the 24-0 vote in the Senate, was a straight 93%. So it just gets allocated somewhat differently.
All right. And is it your belief that this will benefit the critical care hospitals as well, not just the larger ones?
It'll benefit the entire healthcare system, but in particular, the larger hospitals that are the ones that are really under the gun in terms of the impact. Remember, even at this, if you adopt this, the hospitals are still going to pay $46 million more than they get back.
Okay. Thank you. I just was trying to get a little clarification. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I do think that we could stand to have a few Medicaid questions from the senators. Did you want to make any remarks before I ask the senators their questions?
No, I think, we read it similarly. David Chorney, Deputy Medicaid Director, just for the record, that the amendment would raise the percent of, in total funds paid to the hospitals from 80% to 91% in state fiscal year, starting for state fiscal year 26. I remember the amendment Mr. Bradley spoke about from last year. And Senator Pearl, to your question about how are directed payments allocated, under the CMS rules, they have to be allocated based on a hospital's actual utilization of Medicaid services. So if you think about it, for an inpatient, it would be on a per discharge basis. So they would get an additional payment per Medicaid discharge for inpatient. And on the outpatient side, it's based on outpatient encounters. So for each Medicaid outpatient encounter, there would be an additional payment to the Medicaid base payment. So say they get the current inpatient base rate for inpatient is right around $7,000. So they would get the $7,000 and the directed payment would be an additional amount on top of that.
Senator Pearl?
Thank you. So how, it would essentially be a portion of that 5.7, you'd allocate it by how many patients there were for the year, or how would that be decided?
Essentially, it would create a pool, and so I think it's
Yeah.
5.7 in general fund, so we would draw down the federal match, and that would create an additional directed payment pool. And we would, I think we could add it to the current directed payment pool to the hospitals. That's part of the 87% or the 80% plan, and 91% plan in the future. And then it gets divvied up by hospital based on what their actual utilization was. So you take that total pool of dollars and split it up. There are some nuances based on the Hospital Association's recommendation, because one of the big differences between, say, DSH payments and directed payments is through DSH, DSH payments are for uncompensated care of the uninsured and Medicaid. And you don't need to tie that back to, say, a New Hampshire Medicaid patient. It could be an uninsured patient from Vermont, Massachusetts, Maine, where have you. And so hospitals along the border, say Dartmouth-Hitchcock, Cheshire, Wentworth-Douglas on the seacoast, that may see more out-of-state patients that are uninsured, DSH payments can help compensate for that. Whereas directed payments, since it's based on actual utilization of New Hampshire Medicaid beneficiaries, can only pay the add-on amount for a New Hampshire Medicaid beneficiary. But we were able to propose to CMS doing an additional, if you were a border hospital within, I think it was 10 miles of a border, you would get a little bit more, 1.5 times the increase.
So would it be reasonable to think that our critical care hospitals, which generally tend to serve our underserved areas more, would probably see a little bit higher percentage of this because they would have more Medicaid patients than perhaps, say, some of the larger hospitals in the areas where they have more of a population that might not be on Medicaid?
The way we've currently set up.
Or is there no correlation?
So there is, but it's different. So historically, critical access hospitals were paid 75% of their uncompensated care costs under a DSH Med deal. And then the rest of the remaining dollars were paid out in DSH payments to the larger hospitals. That created a historical difference of, say, 25% of the funds went to critical access hospitals, 75% went to the PPS hospitals. And in the 80% plan, there's two directed payments, one just for the PPS hospitals, and they have a separate pool of money, and one for the critical access hospitals, and they have a separate pool of money. So utilization at the larger hospitals doesn't impact the amount of dollars a critical access hospital would receive through their directed payment, because we set it up separately, so there would be two separate directed payments so that you wouldn't get those proportional differences where a critical access hospital, maybe when you look at their overall service utilization, has a higher percentage of Medicaid patients, but would be overwhelmed in the aggregate by a hospital like a Catholic Medical Center who sees a lot more Medicaid patients, but the proportion may be different. If that helps.
I think I get it.
Okay, sorry.
Senator Bertzel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for testifying. You brought up a good point that I hadn't thought of. So when we have hospitals that are on the border of Vermont, maybe Massachusetts and Maine, Do we get reimbursement from the patient's home states if they're from another state?
Yeah, say it's a Vermont Medicaid patient that goes to Mary Hitchcock Hospital. Vermont Medicaid will pay Mary Hitchcock, but it's the Vermont Medicaid rate. And I don't know, so the way states set up their Medicaid programs are slightly different, and some states have a separate rate for out-of-state hospitals than they do for in-state hospitals. And so if the Vermont Medicaid rate was less than the New Hampshire Medicaid rate, that's where you see the differences.
Senator Waters.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So we heard from Senator Bradley that the feeling was that the 5.7 million adder could produce about $80 million. Do you agree with those ballpark figures?
I think I'd need to see the details exactly. The 5.7 in general funds would create, I think, approximately for an additional directed payment pool of around $15 million or $14 million, I think.
Okay,
I don't-
I misunderstood that.
the-
Okay. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, another one. I don't know if this is speculation, but if I were to, would it be correct to surmise that, we have some bills that have a work requirement and potential for, charging a certain fee for Medicaid folks at different income levels, all fine. But if those had any impact on reducing the enrollments in Medicaid, would it be fair to assume that in a way that doesn't affect this, because if they're coming up without Medicaid and they're still coming through the doors for uncompensated care, that the amounts that we would then be able to get from the feds, that would not necessarily be effective, because basically we're providing the care. Is that a way to look at it?
Not quite it, because it really depends on which payment methodology you're using. So in the DISH payments, which is for uncompensated
Right.
care, that would be correct. We could still use federal matching dollars
Right.
through DISH to pay for uninsured. We wouldn't be able to do it through directed payments or rates, because those can only be used to reimburse for individuals who
Gotcha.
are
Okay.
Medicaid enrolled.
So potentially, but who knows?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Senator Pearl?
Do we have a different rate for our out-of-state Medicare payments that we make to out-of-state hospitals versus what we make to our in-state hospitals? You said some states do. What's our policy?
So for ours, the critical access hospitals get a slightly higher base rate than the larger hospital systems, and the out-of-state hospitals get a rate that is equivalent to the larger hospital systems. So we don't have that similar disparity.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? All right, thank you very much. That comes to the end of the people that I wanted to hear from. Is there any senator who wants to bring anyone up to get information? All right. So I believe that Senator Birdsall moves on to pass.
I do. Senator
Waters seconds. Okay. I do want to take a little time to talk. It is my fervent belief that there can only be one negotiator on the state side with the hospitals. And that after speaking with the governor's office and some other people, that they're concerned that if I do anything with the bill right now, other than what we did in the Senate session, that might discourage the other side from negotiating in good faith. Whether it is or it isn't. Certainly one of the things that I brought forward was to go back to the language that was in a bill a few years ago where the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, the one that sets the rates, and have that be the thing that goes forward to the House to give the governor's office, which is who I would like to see do this negotiation, as much flexibility as possible. Right now, with Senator Birdsall's motion and Senator Waters' second on this bill, I'm certainly willing to push that forward from here, but there's a caveat that there needs to be during this week and a half, because this bill is not going to get onto the Senate floor until the last day for crossover. The last day. That's meant to allow some time for those two groups to get closer together. And we will try to reflect, if they come up with an agreement, we will try to reflect that in an amendment that we will put onto the floor. But if they don't come to an agreement, or they come further away from the agreement, there will be a modification, especially to that 91%, that will be brought to the floor as a floor amendment. Because we've got to get somewhere. The critical access hospitals are the ones that I care about the most. 87%, 89%, even, going up higher, critical access hospitals are kind of capped at what they're going to get. But again, there needs to be one person, one group negotiating on the government side, and one group negotiating on the hospital side to come together. So I can tell you that that's what I want to happen, is that negotiation to happen, that there be some agreement that we can reflect in the Senate bill on the floor. Like, what is it, 27th is crossover? So that's my hope, is that we will get there. Senator Rosenwald.
I'm just trying to understand what your plan is. You're not planning to bring it to the floor until,
We're going to vote it out today
and
at
then hold it?
91%, if that's what the will of this committee is, and then special order it till the 27th, and then on the 27th, we will vote it on the Senate floor. At least that's what I'm going to try to do, and I think I've got the backing to do it.
So your plan was not to bring it out, table it, and take it off the table on the 27th?
Correct. I need to get it, for this, if there is an agreement, I believe it needs to go to the House. The House needs to sign on to that agreement and get it all buttoned up. Just my thoughts. Anything else before I go to Senator Waters? Senator? And Deb's going to tell me why I can't do what I want to do anyway, but we'll get there.
Thank goodness for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So would it be fair to understand then that what Senator Bradley brought us forward to us is something that you would be looking to see whether or not that was part of the agreement you hope to reach by the 27th?
I am not going to tell you that I want this and I don't want that, because that undermines what the governor can do in the negotiation. And
Well, I guess I could phrase it another way, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
That I would hope that that proposal, which will generate some income and help, and just a worthy and noble hospital in over and Dover, which is not critical access, but I care about it, that I would hope that the proposal is one that the governor and others who are doing negotiating can consider seriously. And thank you.
And if we need to hold a prayer session in my office afterward, I'd be happy to host that. Okay?
I'm not going to be able to vote for it because we brought it to the committee at 91%, knowing that it was going to damage our healthcare system. And so to send it out doing the same thing, I just, I'm not going to be able to.
Your vote is your vote, Senator. Deb, did you want to?
I just wanted to make sure that you understood that this bill, like every other bill we're going to vote out today, will be on the Senate floor on the 27th, which is crossover. It's okay. I said, that's okay.
All the bills that we work on today will be on the Senate calendar for the 27th. So
Which is
I didn't know if they were going to do an addendum calendar, get some of them out of the way, but apparently not. And they'll all be on the floor the 27th. If I did that wrong, you can tell me. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, we got just 30 seconds.
You can have as long as you need for a caucus. The committee will be in recess for 2 minutes. I'm gonna call the committee back into session because Senator Waters did want to make some remarks.
Yeah, just.
I'll do that first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I really appreciate the work that's been done by Senator Birdsell to bring this forward. I think it is a really good step. A lot of progress has been made. I do feel that, as I suggested earlier, I hope that by the time we get to next week, there's been a way to move forward on something in the shape of what Senator Bradley has suggested. I personally think it's important for us to move 249 along, and just hope that the process between now and when it's on the floor results in an amendment. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rosenbaum.
Is your plan to then table whatever happens?
No, because I need to get it over the House to get their concurrence on hopefully the agreement that will be negotiated between the hospitals and the governor, and so that we can concur with it. We'll put it in this bill, send it right over to the House, and let them vote on it to go forward. Senator Pearl.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Chair, I've sat here for, this is my third year now, learning and listening about MetDish and uncompensated care and all the things that are going on. It's important, and I sincerely hope that both sides that are listening to this, the hospital association's here today, and I'm quite sure the governor's office is paying attention to what's happening here, that we have an agreement next week when this comes back to us, to the floor, because we have got to do something. And I hope that both sides of this understand you've got to do something here, because if not, we're going to decide what you get. And I don't know what that looks like. I've been listening. It's important. These hospitals are important. The whole, the medical system in New Hampshire needs to have you healthy, but we also need to work within the parameters that we can. So I really sincerely hope that both sides are paying attention and you're going to go sit down and find a deal that works. Because if you don't, we're going to do it for you. And that's really what it comes down to. And so I hope that this committee doesn't have to make the tough decisions and that you will all figure this out and get it done. Because I'm going to support whatever I have to make sure that the hospitals and the people of New Hampshire have what they need to do this. So please take this seriously. I want to make sure you understand that. Thank you.
I don't know where the in place to buy vacation homes is right now. Whether that's an island off the coast of South Carolina or whatever, but there's plenty of lawyers already down there. So, and I don't know where Senator Lang is, but we can't wait anymore. So the motion before us ought to pass. It was made by Senator Birdsell, second by Senator Waters. All those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
And that's 4-1. It will not go on consent. All right.
I'll take it out.
Senator Birdsell will take it out. And if she didn't, I would. Okay, we're going to go back. We will be taking a recess after we do the first 3 or 4 bills. I need a comfort break along with the other people who have already taken one. And so we'll do that and then we'll come right back. Okay, so first one is Senate Bill 80.
Second.
We have a motion of ought to pass. Senator Pearl, and the second was Senator Rosenwald. Okay. Although this does have some significant expenditures in here, it is felt that it needs to get over the House to have a discussion whether or not we're going to actually do what it says in here. And there should be I believe, some savings in the future, but we can't qualify those right now, quantify them. Further discussion? Senator Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I talked to Senator Lang about this, and he was uncomfortable with an amendment coming in today on it. So I'll bring it in the House. But I do think that we need to catch up with our definition of nicotine here to include synthetic nicotine as subject to this taxation, and I will work on that in the House. It's a new chemical process, so it's not technically tobacco derived, and was developed by the industry to get through a loophole on this. The feds closed that loophole in 2022, and so I think we need in the state to include synthetic nicotine as well, but that'll be for the House. I did want to mention it today as something about this bill. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Additional comments? Senator Lang, we're on Senate Bill 80.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. So Senate Bill 80 was a result of a study committee. Was a result of a study committee, a bipartisan study committee that unanimously recommended that we migrate the regulatory aspect and the enforcement aspect from right now, e-cigarette manufacturers are taxed at the, or regulated by DRA, whereas retail e-cigarette people are regulated by the liquor enforcement. So there's some conflict when they're doing audits and how to get data moved across. And so, again, everybody agreed that we should migrate all of the enforcement and regulatory aspects over to liquor, let them license and regulate the entire industry, which makes the auditing to make sure we're getting the proper taxes that we're supposed to get. Because even the industry came in and says they're having uneven taxation because of the conflict between liquor and DRA and the relationship, having to wait and go back and find out data. And they felt that we'd do much better with tax revenue if we consolidated both the enforcement and regulatory and licensing all into one agency.
And Senator Waters has already talked about waiting to put in his amendment on until it gets over to the House. Is there further discussion on the ought to pass motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Motion for consent. All those in favor of consent say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. And Senator Lang,
I will
you
take
get that one. Senate Bill 83.
Second,
Pearl and Lang.
I'm going to offer amendment number 1078S.
Senator Lang offers amendment 1078S.
If I can speak to my amendment?
And Senator Pearl is going to second that for you.
Thank you, Senator Pearl. So this amendment does three different things. The first was on the definition of gross video lottery revenue. In the states that have adopted this, there's a thing called free play. It's basically where they give you a coupon to come in and play, and they cash in chips for it. That shouldn't be considered revenue for the purpose of taxation because there's no technical dollar figure to it. So it just defines, it says that for any free play, a licensee conduct up to 12.5% of the value, so they don't get taxed on it. So they only get taxed on 12.5% of the value. Then the second thing this bill does on line 10 is it lowers the tax rate to 32%. To give you an idea what that means in revenue, so currently, as of this week, we have 3,300 machines that are in the state. Under the current law, that would generate to the state about $45 million in revenue with 3,300 machines. By changing it to this taxation rate and the same number of machines, understanding that slot machines have a higher return rate than regular HHR machines, the revenue would go up to $83 million from $45 million. We'd have a $40 million increase roughly in revenue. The 3-year projections for the state are that we're going to have roughly about 5,000 machines statewide. There's 2 larger casinos opening up, one in the southern part of the state and one over on the seacoast, and that is made to bring our machines up to 5,000 machines. At a 32.5 tax rate, that's $127 million in revenue that we'll start seeing by in the next 3 years. The last thing this bill does is, in the original bill, the last line 21 on there, I had in my bill a line that said it went to the purposes of Group 2, which I still wanted to go to. However, the problem was we have no fund for Group 2. I can't just deposit money into a fund. And so what the original line said, 50% to fund retirement benefits for Group 2 members of the retirement system under RSA 100-A. There's no place to put the money. So the money has to go to the general fund, in which case we can then designate the purpose for it. So 50% of the revenue would go, I just corrected that mistake and put it into the general fund.
And I'm sure you'll remind us of that. The motion is on the amendment. Is there further discussion? Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to ask, I understand the math that we anticipate much more revenue because of more machines and so on and so forth. But given the situation and assuming that the facilities wouldn't go out of business if we kept it at 35, why not?
So thank you for the question. Again, so I will say that I was in conversation with the two larger facilities that I talked about, one in the southern end of the state and one over on the seacoast. At 35%, the investors were out.
Pardon?
At 35%, the investors would have been out at the tax rate. There wasn't enough margin in the business to support them, and so they had already they had stepped out. At 32.5%, they stepped back in and committed to be back in for jobs. It's going to be a little over about 1,500 jobs between the two facilities alone. And I can tell you how, I'm not even counting what the rooms and meals tax revenue would be for those facilities as well, strictly the gaming revenue. So again, the reason being is it was trying to balance taxing a business at a rate that doesn't deter growth, understanding that if I want to go to Encore in Boston and put $50 down on red on a roulette wheel, and I win, I get $100 total. If I can do that same exact thing in New Hampshire, the only differentiator is the venue itself, the customer experience. So the more money we can give the venues to enhance the customer experience by not taxing them to death, will make our facilities. One of the senators was recently down at the newest facility that opened in Nashua, and 70% of all the vehicles in the parking lot were from out of state. So we want to make it so they want to come to New Hampshire, not go to Encore.
Additional questions, comments? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. So my understanding of slot machines versus HHR is that the operators don't have to pay 12 to 18%. So regardless of the tax rate, they're saving 12 to 18% of their cost for the machines. So I guess I'm not following why the investors would step away for a 2.5% further cut.
Sure, thank you for the question. So again, under the current law, we have roughly about a 35% tax rate. We have a 25% tax rate on HHR, and then the 10% operational expense to run HHR. The 10% goes away if we go to slots, which would give them, if we didn't change the law, it would just be an effective 25% tax rate. So the problem is how much meat's on the bone, basically. At 32.5%, so under current law, the operators keep about 65% of the revenue under the current law. With this change, the operators would keep 67.5%, so a little bit more the gaming revenue. Again, the goal is to differentiate themselves from the Massachusetts, whether it's Springfield or Encore, whether it's over in Maine or Oxford, is to allow them to have cleaner, better, more facilities, more people there. So the more money I can put in the operator's pocket to enhance the experience, the more people we're going to get from these out-of-states coming in to visit us. So I want to put more money in their pockets so that we have better experience in New Hampshire. We are a tourism state. We make a significant amount of money coming from people coming to our state. And so my understanding is, again, at the 35 rate, there wasn't enough meat on the bone to make basically the cost, right? The cost of your loan, the cost of everything else was significant enough that they asked for the 2.5%. It's not what the House has, but just 30%. But at 32.5, they were in. At 35, they were out. And I have a commitment from them on that.
Follow up.
So on the issue of the Group 2,
Yep.
did Did you consider setting up a fund that then could be repealed when the last Group 2 members' retirement fix was fixed? So
Yes.
that we actually did what
We wanted to do.
everyone wanted to do, rather than put the money in the general fund.
So I actually considered it, but to be honest with you, I didn't think of it till too late, till last week, about maybe I should create a fund and do this, and I felt that was too much of an ask.
I'd like to comment on the Group 2 stuff. As I read through the governor's bill, I should say the bill the governor submitted, there are things that would affect Group 2, but Tier B, but there's also people that would be affected in the next tier down. Okay, so talking about an end state, I think is premature at this time, especially if you're saying that there's a provision in there that new hirees, their pensions would not be able to be decreased after 3 years of service and other things that are in there. But we're getting too far into that bill. We need to stay with this one. I know that Senator Lang, does want to increase Group 2 Tier B retirements. And I know that you also do, Senator. So I think that discussion is better had later.
He also knows that I haven't supported this bill,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
on its policy phase.
Yep. Okay, the motion in front of us is ought to pass on Amendment 1078. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And we're 5-1. We're back to the bill as amended. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And same result. Senator, do you object to consent?
So your plan is to send the bill to the House?
Yep.
Yes, I do.
Okay. It will stay on the regular.
Okay.
Senator Lang, you get to take this one out also. All right, we were at 86.
Second.
Senator Pearl moves ought to pass. Senator Rosenwald seconds. And Senator Rosenwald?
Yes, I have a very small amendment, 1060S. If all of the
Senator
projects,
Rosenwald moves her
Second.
amendment.
thank you.
Seconded by Senator Lang.
If all of the projects collapsed all at once, the state would be on the hook for $240 million. And the way the bill is currently drafted, the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority can just go to the treasurer and ask for $240 million. So my amendment is simply the last sentence saying the treasurer shall report any such advances to the Joint Fiscal Committee at its next meeting, just so we have some clue what's going on.
Is there any further discussion on Senator's amendment 1060S? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Now we're at the bill as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Is there a motion for consent?
Moved?
And all those in favor of consent say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Then, but, I mean, I'm not gonna argue with it going on consent. Just think it's a big lift.
The thing in here, because the reason I was willing to put it on consent is that given another 2007, when my daughter bought her house at the top of the market, you know, if one of those events does occur, we're going to have lots of problems. And, you know, to hold this bill back, when that's the only time, you know, that this kind of a thing would cost us money. And then with your provisions
Okay,
to
then
have it
I
go
will
to
withdraw
fiscal.
my day, but
Okay. So we're back to all going to consent. All right. Whose bill was it? I forget.
Perkins quote, huh?
Perkins Quokka.
I'll take it then.
Ted Rosenwald. All right. I'm going to call a recess of 15 minutes at least. Okay, we'll call the Senate Committee out of recess. Next bill is Senate Bill 87. And the amendment number is? And you move the amendment and Senator Rosenwald seconds it.
Basically, the bulk of this amendment on the floor last week. I got another call from the chief saying they forgot to add what you see on line 15 and 16. That, in fact, is all that is new in this amendment. Nothing is sectioned somehow. The commissioners are like just smart and large about located in a private residence, so we don't want people to have a bar in their home. So that's why they felt this was needed to be added, and so here it is, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, is there any other comments? This looks like it would be a straight pass. All those in favor of Amendment 0968S, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. And I guess I'm missing nobody. Okay. 6-0. And ought to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
No, but I won't object to consent.
5-1. All those in favor of consent say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Senator Lang wants to take it up.
Yeah, I do, let me do that.
Senator Waters, you get to take this one out. $97.
Ought to pass?
OTP, Senator Birdsall, Senator Pearl. Okay. So if there's any confusion about this one, this would just be within the district. So if you're Manchester, Rochester, Nashua, and you have a school district and multiple schools, and if there's room. All right, any discussion? All those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? 5-1. Is there an objection to consent? Okay, all those in favor of consent, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And Senator Lang.
Senator Pearl's
Well,
on.
actually, it doesn't.
He's on.
You are second listed, yes. Next on the list is Senate Bill 125.
Move ought to pass?
OTP, Senator Birdsall, Senator Pearl. This would be a table.
Question.
For nursing facility and home community-based care. Any discussion? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. Didn't we change the name of nurse practitioners in statute some years ago to advanced practice registered nurses? Do they? Would this not apply to the APRNs? But it's going on the table.
Yeah.
It is going on the table. If you want to defer the vote on this for a minute or two, I can ask
No,
LBA to investigate what the real name is.
She's saying no, she doesn't care.
Shouldn't. Okay,
we have until
we have a
June.
we have a motion of ought to pass. All those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? 6-0. Do I have a motion for consent?
Oh, table.
Oh, that's right, this is the table.
Take it out.
And Senator Birdsall gets to take it out. Here Getting too excited, trying to move things too quickly. 127 is also passing table.
Second.
Senator Pearl moves out to pass. And Senator Lang seconds. Relative to public guardianship, etc. Again, this is passing table. It's like 5.6 million or 7 million, whatever. Comments? Senator Rosemont, you look like you want to say something. You got your red light on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Seeing no other comments, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Do I have them? That's Senator Pearl. $131. OTP,
This is a table.
Lang
What
and
to
Pearl.
pass the
This
table.
this would also be a table. Lang and Pearl, right? Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
I'll take it out.
Senator Birdsall. $135, also passing table.
Second.
Pearl and Lang. Yep.
Yes, clarification from the department at some point as to whether the way I read it just applies to case management under the Medicaid state plan and not the waiver services.
He's right here.
And I think most of the case management was audited done for waivers.
He's right here. He'll either answer your question or take it back and get you an answer within hours.
Sorry. So, I forgot to turn it back on.
That's all right. Ask your question
The way
again.
I read this bill, it applies to Medicaid state plan services, not to the waivers.
David Chorney, the state's deputy Medicaid director, for the record. We read it as applying to both state plan and CFI. Case management provided, and the CFI would be the 1915C waiver population.
Senator.
How are you reading it that way?
Let me-
Where do I
Sorry, one
see?
second, let me pull it up and make sure. I'm
Was
not-
it a 1915C waiver or 1115? I just see the word state Medicaid plan.
So, the 1915C, although it's a waiver, it is a state plan service. It's different from other Medicaid waivers like the 1115, which is can potentially cover services that are outside the state plan. But the 1915C draws its authority from the state plan, so that's how we read it, as inclusive of both your traditional state plan case management services and the CFI population case management
Thank you.
services. Yep.
Okay, additional questions? Seeing none, motion is ought to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
I'll take it out.
Senator Birdsall,
Oh, it came out of HHS. so-
it came out of HHS, all right. I'm not gonna argue with you. Okay, 153.
You want to pass?
Lang, Pearl,
And this is a
OTP.
straight pass on.
Pass consent.
Can I ask a question?
153 would be a straight pass.
That's just a question, Mr. Chairman. So,
Yeah.
is there a revised fiscal note given the amendment that was done on the bill?
I have not received one that I know of. I was told that there were two revised fiscal notes, but they were on Senate Bill 246 and 249. So this one was not included in that.
All right. Well, I mean, it is the highway fund, but I'll check when it gets over to the House then, so, thank you.
Sure, just to clarify, Senator, no revised fiscal note, we did send it out for revision. For cost relative to this, the position cost at DOIT, that's about $100,000 a year, I think. There's no appropriation contained in here, so the department, although it establishes a position, the department would still have to seek authorization to fund that. There are some fees in here that fiscal note will estimate, but we're still waiting for that response.
Thank you, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, I guess my question was
Certainly.
whether it still be the number of positions needed, or would there be fewer, given the changes to the bill? Because in the original fiscal note, we had 4 positions.
Multiple for, yes, it was,
Here,
So the original fiscal note did have 4 positions, about 650. This would limit that, so this would actually mandate that they can only get that 1 position. So, sure.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
okay, further discussion, Senator
So,
Lang.
again, this was supported by the building industry, and they anticipate that it's basically gonna be self-funding when it's all done, that the expedited process, they're willing to pay for the expedited process to get these houses up, because time is money. And so the industry supports this bill as it's written.
Very good.
Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. And we have a motion for consent.
Second.
All those in favor of consent, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. And Senator Pearl. Two oh four.
Move out to pass.
Second.
I offer amendment number 1065S. So the amendment, what it does is make it clear that this is an optional program for municipalities and school districts, that if they choose to offer food services for children between 185% poverty to 200% poverty, they can opt into this provision. If they choose to opt in, the state will cover 50%. This is a fiscally responsible way to have both local buy-in as well as the state buy-in, and I ask you to support the amendment.
All right. What is in front of us is the amendment, 1065S. This would be a straight pass. Get it onto the House. Senator Waters?
Just one question of Senator Lang. So the amounts that you have here, is this the formula that had been worked out in the original bill, number of potential kids and so on and so forth? So these numbers reflect what the estimates now are of the districts that would take advantage of this option per student per day?
That's correct. We worked with Hunger Solutions to be able to come up with a more accurate number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. And we have
We have to vote on the bill first.
the bill as, that's all right.
Getting ahead of yourself, Howard.
I'm gonna say that, I'm gonna say that. The motion is the bill as amended. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. And
Consent.
Senator Pearl has
Second.
already moved consent. And Senator Lang seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And Senator Lang,
I'll take that.
you've got the biggest amendment, so you get to take it out. $228.
I'll move on to pass.
I heard Waters and Pearl first. All right, this is another straight pass.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I just want to note that there are some issues with utilities about how some of the accounting will be done here, which I hope we will continue working on the House, but the bottom line for us is that these are, if there are expenses, they're recoverable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion. Okay, the motion is ought to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We have a motion for consent. Senator Pearl. We have multiple seconds. All those in favor of consent say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Waters,
Yes.
you got this one.
Thank you.
243.
Move on to Senate.
Yes, ma'am. And I do believe that we're doing all right. Senator Rosenwald moves, ought to pass. Senator Pearl seconds it. And 243 is a straight pass. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Pearl moves to consent.
Second.
Senator Lang seconds. All those in favor of consent, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. And Senator Birdsall is going to take this one out. All right, 244,
Move on to pass.
and this would be a passive table. OTP, Senator Rosenwald, seconded by Senator Birdsall. You know, you weren't quick enough that time. But if you want to start with consent.
Quick,
oh,
move
no.
consent. No.
This is a passive table. Okay, discussion on ought to pass.
Just,
Senator,
I worked with Senator Rochefort and the Health Committee to,
$10 there,
And
pretty
so you'll
soon
have
you're
real
talking
money.
about real money, yeah.
but it will really help rural healthcare services.
Okay, is there further discussion on Senate Bill 244? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, 7-0. And Senator Rosenwald, you get to take that one out. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7. Oh. I did not. Okay, then it's 6-0. Thank you. And who's taking it out? You know, I thought I heard her. You know? All right, 246.
Second.
Senator Rosenwald moves ought to pass. And Senator Lang seconds. $246 is going to be a passing table. Okay, discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. 7-0. Okay. And whose bill is that?
I can take this.
Huh?
I'll take it out.
Senator Birdsall wants to take this one out too. It's gonna be a busy woman. All right, we've already done 249, so next one is 255.
Second.
Senator Pearl, Senator Birdsall.
Just want to clarify on this one. I know that Senator Carson and I are working on, I know there are some concerns about the funding piece of this, that we are going to be trying to work with some of the providers to do a public-private partnership, so we're working on that. So this will give us a little extra time to work on it.
And this would be a passing table. Okay. Further discussion. The motion is ought to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And it passes. And anybody in here on there? Senator Birdsall, she keeps on raising her hand.
I'm done now, after this.
This is it. It's, okay. And 277, another passing table.
Move on, pass. Second.
Lang Pearl ought to pass. Okay, any comments, questions? Utility property tax. Senator Rosenberg.
I'm curious why it's passed on table.
The reason that I put it past the table is it's got 5.36 million. Yeah,
So this was a bill that came out of a commission that we've had a couple times now. And it does have an impact on revenues, a 5.7, I think it was, $5.4 million impact on revenues. So the idea was, let's take a look what the revenues look like, let's see what it's working like, and then we'll deal with it in the budget.
so the top of the second page of the FN report says, based on education trust fund revenue will decrease at 5.36 million in FY '28 and by 12.72 in FY '20. So that's why I did it.
This type is so small.
Okay. And no other comments? The motion is ought to pass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
And I'll take it out.
And Senator Lang,
Well, I was gonna volunteer some of the words, so.
No, I think we should volunteer Senator Innes since he's not here.
does she have a red sweater on today? 279, another pass and table. Did I hear Senator Rosenwald, you moved and Senator Waters?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, further discussion? All right, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Rosenwald, you get to take it out. $292. OTP, Lang, Pearl. And this is a straight pass. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We have a motion for consent and a second. All those in favor of consent say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And Senator Lang, it's your bill, and you get to take it out. $295, straight pass.
Move on pass.
Lang and Pearl ought to pass. Comments? All those in favor of ought to pass say aye. Aye. All those opposed? 5-2. And and we will do that. And who wants to take it up?
I'll take that.
Okay. So 5-2.
Not consent.
Not consent. Okay. I think we're going to make your 4 o'clock, Senator. And Senate Bill 300.
Move on pass.
Lang,
Second.
Robertson,
You're slow.
OTP.
I didn't realize this was so competitive.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sometimes it's. This also, I thought, was a straight pass.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
You may.
So again, I'm going to bring a floor amendment for this bill. There's a correction that was done by a group of police, domestic violence, police, sexual assault. It cleans up some of the language. There's an exemption in here. We're going to make sure it applies to everybody, not just adults. So even a 16-year-old who does this would be subject to this law as well. And so, but I need a floor amendment to clean up some of the language. Kate, wherever she is sending the floor amendment in, and I'll get copies to everybody before it hits the floor.
Okay, the question in front of us is ought to pass. All those in
So
favor?
can I, excuse me, may I ask a
Certainly.
question on that?
I didn't mean to rush you.
So Senator Lang, would the 16-year-old be tried as an adult?
Yes. In New Hampshire, 13 and over can be tried as an adult, depending on the court's ruling. So the possibility, the answer is yes. I think actually at 16 and above, you'd be tried as an adult anyway.
Okay.
And that would be a possibility that prosecutor would have leeway.
You have discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rosenbaum.
So in section B, lines 8 and 9, where the parent can give consent for the sexual representation, is your floor amendment going
I
to
believe it's going to
address
fix
that?
that. Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
So we'll be able to have the bearskin rug picture, but not much further.
And the naked cousins, 2-year-olds in the bathtub are okay.
Right.
Right, thank you.
Seeing no other comments, all those in favor of us to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, 7-0. And we're not going to put it on consent because we're gonna have a floor amendment. And it'll just be easier if Lang takes it out, if he's gonna have the floor amendment.
Sure.
All right. Any comments before I take us out of executive session?
Move to come out of executive session.
We have a motion and a second to come out of executive session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We're out of executive session. Our business today being complete, we are adjourned.